It's funny because it's a quote from Joan Rivers. I wish I could tell you it gets better. It doesn't get better. You get better. And that's always just resonated with me because it can apply to anything in life. There's always going to be good times. There's always going to be hard times. You can't avoid them. You just get better and you figure out how to adapt and how to handle things just differently and better and get through them.
Hi, I'm Jason Harris, and you're listening to Soul and Science. Fast forward your marketing mind in about 20 minutes. Today on the show, I'm talking with Andrew Meyerson and Julianne Kelly, co-founders of Haymakers for Hope. Back in 2009, Andrew and Julie participated in New York City Golden Gloves. They decided that competing against the city's best boxers just wasn't enough, and they decided to raise money for cancer research. This planted the seeds for Haymakers for Hope. Today, their nonprofit gives everyday people the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to compete in their first sanctioned boxing event. This experience is impactful, challenging, and often life-changing, and the march towards a cure will continue long after the last match of the night. I should know, I participated in Haymakers for Hope. Julie is a cancer survivor herself, and Andrew is an expert businessman with an MBA from the Sloan School of Management at MIT and experience working for Goldman Sachs. Through Haymakers for Hope, Andrew and Julie are helping to connect communities, local businesses, and boxing fans together against a common cause. On today's episode, you'll learn that mental stamina is just as powerful as physical stamina, and this is true in the boxing ring and in the boardroom. You'll learn to run a company, it's best to have complementary business styles in a partnership. And you'll learn that marketing a nonprofit is as complex, if not more so, than any for-profit enterprise. All right, folks, let's dive in and fast forward our marketing minds. I'd love to start by asking you guys how Haymakers started. What's the origin story, and how did you two get together to start it?
So Jill and I actually grew up a few miles from each other, but in different towns. We met in New York City at a boxing gym downtown called Trinity Boxing. Julie was one of those people that was like, she was in the gym twice a day, every day, and she was the hardest worker. She made everybody else want to work harder. And she actually won the New York City Golden Gloves in 2009 and set, yeah, for people that don't know, winning the New York City Golden Gloves is a big deal in New York City, especially if you're someone that didn't grow up boxing, which she did not. So it was really impressive. And then in 2010, she asked a bunch of us in the gym if we were interested in, doing the gloves also. And I think, what came out of it was, if we were to do this, we should do it, with something that's more than just about us. We should try to see if we can raise money for it, just like someone would a marathon. And when you think about why someone runs a marathon, or when someone runs a marathon, why you donate, the donation has nothing to do with the outcome. The donation is to help you through those, like the training, right? It's to help you through those long, arduous hours where you're alone, it's dark, and you're running. And it's really great to see the support of your friends and family. We saw that we figured that the training timeline for a marathon was very similar to what it would be for our fights. So could we raise money in the same way, but then also give people the ability to come see us, for more than like a half of a second in the ring? And I worked at one of those at a big bank on Wall Street, worked on one of those big trading desks, and a lot of people, you put it out there and people got really into it, right? They got so super excited. But the problem that we saw was, it's just like when you have a friend that's in a band, everyone goes to their first show and nobody goes to their second show. And at the same time, I had a lot of people come to me and who were like, type A aggressive people who didn't grow up boxing, like I didn't grow up boxing, but they all said they would love to see what they could do in the ring one time, but they didn't know how to get started. And one thing that Julie and I knew was that once you were in boxing, and this was kind of before boxing became a hip fitness tool, once you were in one of these gyms, they had a phenomenal community and culture. It was just kind of scary to like take that first step in. And so we wanted to break down the barrier to entry into the world of boxing for people, and then also find a way to raise more money than that would have been raised otherwise.
And what were you doing at the time, Julie?
I worked for Hearst Television in the digital side.
And then how long, when you guys started this, it was kind of a side hustle to start. When did you like quit your other gigs?
I was still working for Hearst Television in 2014. And we had our first event in 2011. So from 2011 to 2014, I was doing a full-time job, had a stepdaughter, and every single night after work, I was in and out of gyms all throughout Massachusetts, visiting boxers and talking to coaches, and on the weekends doing gym visits and everything. So.
And what about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I did pretty quickly. So we had the first event in June. Like the worst case scenario in my mind at the time was, is this worth taking 2 years, 2 years of missed income to see if I could, make this grow and really do something exciting with it. So I left that fall.
And at what point did you guys realize that you had something that could really grow and that was unique in the space?
The very first event in 2011 at the Castle at Park Plaza in Boston, we really didn't know what the hell we were doing. We thought we'd be pumped if we got like 500 people there, broke even, potentially raised, a little bit more to give to Dana-Farber, and we had over 1,000 people in attendance. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, we wrote out a check for about $189,000 for Dana-Farber.
Wow, that's awesome.
We had absolutely no concept what we were doing. And we made it happen. And so really that was the initial thing where we looked at each other and we were like, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened.
How do you think about marketing Haymakers? Because there's a lot of different reasons for being. Obviously, you have the cause-related piece of it, which is primary. Then you have to do the marketing to get the fighters. You got to get the trainers. You got to get people to come to the event. You got to get people to donate. How do you kind of think about that structure or like the priorities of how to market Haymakers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple different things there to unpack, right? So, the fighters are a huge thing, right? And for those of you that don't know, Jason actually fought in one of our events. That's how we know each other very well.
Never boxed before, and the training was grueling.
But he was awesome.
It's hard.
That was great.
So I think initially getting the buy-in from the trainers was a real struggle. It was actually easier in New York because a lot of the trainers knew who we were. In Boston, they didn't really know us as well, even though that's where we were from because we didn't box there. But once we, kind of told them that what we were doing, what we were trying to do, and that we were trying to do things the right way, they might have been skeptical for the first show, but I think they got very behind it. And now they, for the most part, all the trainers we work with love working with us, and that's why they do it. Once we have the fighters, they're the ones selling the tickets, right? So nobody's watching amateur boxing unless there's a novelty or a tie. They are the novelty. So Jason, to use you as an example, the whole Mechanism crew came out not because they're boxing fans, but because they wanted to see you and support you. Right. So you became the influencer of your office. Right. And, everyone rallies around you as the gladiator. Right. And so you're selling tickets. You're the one that is really out there. So, by us finding the fighters, I think in turn that then helps us. That's the marketing. We then count on you to market the event because you're the star.
And that's pretty unique. Your job's to find the right mix of fighters to make for a good event to watch. And then you got to find the right fighters that are going to do the marketing for you, really, to get people in the door and raise the money.
Yeah, because each individual boxer ultimately, once their 4-month journey is over, they're sharing their experience with everyone and share their why, their motivation, and people get wrapped up in that because it's really moving. We've had people from all walks of life. It's not always the type of people that you think would be boxers. It's stay-at-home moms. It's all different types of people who do this, and they tell their story and they inspire others, and it kind of plants that little seed into somebody who thinks, well, maybe I could do that. We've had about 1,200 people go through the program over the years. And that for us is the best form of advertising, along with letting the event speak for themselves. But to have 1,200 people telling others about their experience and how it was life-changing and that they were able to make an impact against a disease is really what allows us to continue to have people sign up to want to look forward to and want to have that experience.
I think you guys have raised like, what, $25 million or something absolutely insane amount of money. Do you guys feel you can go beyond boxing with Haymakers?
Well, so we do have other stuff, right? So we have marathon teams, we have some golf events, and we have polar bear plunges. So we do have other things. I think, the boxing's obviously like, that's us, right? That's what we do. And I think from like listening to a lot of your podcasts, a lot of these companies, like they have like they might have a suite of products, but like there's usually one home run product. And for us, the boxing is the home run product. So I do think of like, when we think of growth, we think primarily of boxing. That being said, like, our running program is growing significantly. Our golf is doing well. And Julie leads up the charge in the polar bear plunge, and like her team.
That's not for you, Andrew. You're not into that.
No, I do it. I do it. She loves it though.
I make it a good time.
Julie's more fun than I am.
Julie loves to punish herself.
I'm Irish. What do you want from me?
Exactly.
I don't know any different.
What are some of the obstacles in running a nonprofit that you guys run into?
There's a lot of scrutiny, right, on nonprofits. I think like we're audited yearly, and that's a big process. I think there's a trust factor. Like, where does like people, always ask like, where does the money go? What are the percentages? What are like, when you're buying like, a Twinkie, no one's asking what percentage actually goes into making the product, right? They just buy the Twinkie. And so, I think that there's a lot of scrutiny around it from that perspective, but I think that we try to operate Haymakers just like you would a for-profit business. We offer a service and people consume the service, and there's, a price for it. And, I think what we try to do is just give people the best possible experience they can, just like you would for like a for-profit business.
I kind of look at it as a little bit of a sort of, I guess, like it's an obstacle, but it's also something great. Is with all of our events, especially for myself, I'm dealing with boxers all the time, and there's a lot of personalities, and sometimes it can be an obstacle to really kind of, because some people sign up and have this moment of true self-doubt. What did I sign up for? I cannot do this. And we have 6 events a year, and I talk to a lot of people, and sometimes it can be a little bit of an obstacle trying to convince people that, they can do this. Work with them all through the 4 months can be, it can be a little bit draining personally on me, but at the end, I look at every fighter like they're my child. I'm just so excited.
What are some like amazing outcomes that you guys have had from being able to raise that much money to knock out cancer?
I think that's what fuels us, right? If you're asking like why we continue to do this, it's like we have one woman who is she's a single mom. She had a son who passed away of neuroblastoma. She went through a really dark period right afterwards, and then she used Haymakers as her way to kind of come back and like really like kickstart herself to live a healthier, better lifestyle. We had a guy who was hit by a car and was told he was never going to walk again. And not only did he, start walking again, but he did our event, not because he thought he could win, not because he thought he was like an ass kicker, but he wanted to prove to the world that like, I'm back. I can literally do anything. We had a woman a month ago, right, who in DC, who her trainer asked her if she wanted to do Haymakers, and she was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "I think you can do this." And she said to us, she goes, "I didn't think I was the type of person who could do hard things." And then, she had an amazing fight. She was losing the fight. She came roaring back, and like she had so much heart. And after the fight, she said to us, she was like, "I know I could do anything now, and it's because of this."
I love that. What about the organizations that you work with? How do you determine where the money goes?
Each boxer who fundraises they have the ability to select a 501c3 nonprofit of their choice that has a cancer focus. They're the ones stepping in the ring. They're the ones taking the punches and training and on event night. And a lot of people are driven through either honoring someone or in memory of someone. And typically, sometimes it can be they're very disease specific. They had a grandmother pass away from breast cancer and they want to specifically support, so disease specific, or they have a family member who was treated at Dana-Farber or Sloan Kettering and they want to support a clinical trial there.
Yeah, so we believe that if you're getting punched in the face for this, that you should have some say in where the money goes. And from a storytelling perspective, how deep can I get in this? Where is the personal connection? And the more you can make, the more personal you can make it, the more you're going to be able to speak to your prospective donors, and the more impact you're going to have.
Julie, as you're both co-founders, it's important when you start any initiative, business, nonprofit, if you're doing it with someone else, you've really got to have complementary skills. So how do you divide up who does what, and what do you think each of your strengths and blind spots are?
I've always said that Andrew's the brains and I'm the brawn.
Do you still think that?
There isn't much going on up here.
No, that's not true.
But I can box, so I got that going for me. Andrew's he's just got such a great business mind, and he thinks of things that I've never even known about. I think one of my strengths, I guess, would really be I'm very friendly, and there's always been something where people really open up to me. They just, even if I could have just spent 10 minutes with someone and someone will tell me something and they'll say, I've never told anyone that. And I'm just like, are you sure you're supposed to tell me? I'm a cancer survivor. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 22. I then went on to start boxing and compete, and it just it changed my life. And to have an opportunity to have a role where I am healthy and I can give back to other people to further research or to support survivorship, but also to introduce other people to this sport that probably, I would say, saved my life just as much as chemo did. That's what drives me. But I couldn't do it on this scale if I didn't have somebody like Andrew who knows the ins and outs of business and how to be smart. Because I'm impulsive and I'm chaotic and I'm loud and crazy, and he compliments me in that sense. But I can talk to the fighters, and it's like the girl that Andrew had just mentioned in DC. I spoke to her recently and she said to me, I just needed somebody else to believe in me the way that my coach did to make me realize I could do this. And sometimes that's all it takes.
What are some business obstacles that you currently face that keep you guys up at night?
I mean, what we do is so dependent on the fighters, right? And so if we have a group, collectively a group of fighters that isn't doing what another group has done in the past, I think that gets scary. We operate in big venues now, right? Like 2,000 people, 3,000 people. And, I remember going back to the first time, and we've outgrown this venue now, but I remember the first time going into the House of Blues, booking it in Boston, and going up to the third level and looking down. And I remember I had a total panic attack of being like, holy shit, what the hell? Are people really going to come to this? And I know Julie and I still to this day, our event in DC is at the Anthem. It's a massive, really, really cool venue. And when people start, trickling in, it's still okay, cool, people are coming.
What do you think a important decision, maybe that was unpopular or hard to make, that you two as co-founders had to make at some point in the business that you're glad you made?
I don't know that I would say it was unpopular, but it was a hard decision to make, was to pull the plug on our LA show.
I was going to say the same thing.
We got as far as hosting orientation and starting and fighters getting in the gym. And we made it that far. We were so close to really, really officially getting it off the ground. And we knew it wouldn't be the same caliber of event that we were putting out there. And it was a personal decision that we just needed to pull the plug on it.
The soul versus science, I think, is a question on this podcast a lot. And I think that what we do is it's such small data sets, right? It's 30 people each time. And so I think that we typically lead with our gut on a lot of these things. And I think that was one in particular where we looked at each other and were like, I really don't think we can make this work. Like could we? Maybe, but would it be such a grind that it wouldn't be worth it? And the answer at that point in time was yes. And that was the reason why we had to pull away. And since then, like I think we learned so much from that negative experience. I think that we were a little gun shy to open up new cities for a couple of years, but I think once we did, and now we have more of a formula with how we do it. It's much easier for us to push go on something like that. But I do think that like even to this day, like if I were to say to Julie, like, hey, let's open up, Fargo, and she's gonna be like, dude, why? Or it's not just like a fuck yeah, let's go. We're not pirates anymore, right? Like we do think about these things critically.
Julie, do you have a role model in your life?
I was an athlete my whole life. I went on to, box. A lot of my role models were my coaches. I had a coach when I was younger. He was my friend's dad. His name was Mr. Rasha. He coached me both soccer and basketball. And he was always on me about just, playing my hardest and doing this. And I always felt like he was picking on me, always. And as I've gotten older, I've realized he wasn't picking on me. He knew that I had something in me that he was trying to pull out. And I worked so hard for that man because I wanted to make him proud. He actually had Hodgkin's lymphoma and beat it before I was diagnosed. And after I had my biopsy done, and ultimately it was a cancer diagnosis, he actually came to my house and he was the one who told me. He just did something. He knew how to talk to me and pull something out of me that could get me to try my hardest. And then Francisco Mendez, my trainer at Mendez Boxing, who
Legend.
Yeah. I fought under him for the gloves in 2009, 2010. And he was a lot like Mr. Rasha to me. He was always there for me. He could, without even having to talk, we could kind of read each other's mind. And I just knew what he wanted and needed me to do when I was in there. And what he did for the boxing community, and giving us a home to go to every single day. He was just always somebody that I looked up to, and I miss him every day.
What about you, Andrew? Any role models?
Yes and no. Like I have great parents, and I think that I've always looked up to them. I've had, people that I look up to and I read about, and some of them I've met, some of them I haven't. But I think as we've gone through this entrepreneurial process, it's so unique that it's hard to find one person or one, thing. So I do try to take certain things from a bunch of different people, whether that be from, people that are a little bit older than me, and how I deal with my kids, how I deal with work, how I do a lot of things. But I think it's hard to find one person, because what we've done is so unique.
Julie, if you didn't have this job, what would you be doing?
Oh no, I don't know. I'd probably just stay at home and be a mom to my kids. I don't know. I really have no idea. I think this is it.
I love that.
It's really my two passions. It's, boxing and giving back. And, I don't know that I'm hireable.
What would you do, Andrew?
Oh God, I have no idea.
Do you have a favorite quote or mantra?
Well, I used to say in my head when I would be training and I didn't like it anymore and I wanted to quit, I would just say, not me, not now. It was my little mantra of dissociating.
Not me, not now.
Not me, not now. And that would help. That's the thing about boxing. There's so many quotes, or there's so many motivational things that can be said. And the only quote sometimes that I think about is when, after being sick and I went through a really depressed period and I found boxing. And it's funny because it's a quote from Joan Rivers, but I always loved I wish I could tell you it gets better. It doesn't get better. You get better. And that's always just resonated with me because it can apply to anything in life. There's always going to be good times. There's always going to be hard times. You can't avoid them. And you just get better and you figure out how to adapt and how to handle things just differently and better and get through them.
You guys follow your gut a lot. You're driven a lot by your heart. Do you have a method or a process to crack something when you're stuck?
Personally, I run now. So I've gotten into running, and I don't usually listen to anything when I run. So it could be an hour, 2 hours, and you're kind of in your own head. And so, that's usually where I go to think about those types of things.
Do either of you have an outstanding life goal that you want to accomplish? Something that's been on the back burner that you're like, okay, one day I'm gonna find the time. I'm gonna do that thing.
I mean, I'm going to run my third marathon in a week and a half, and it'll be my third major. So that was a goal that I didn't know that I had until I did the first one. Both of us have little kids, and so I think that it's definitely a goal of mine is to raise awesome kids and just to have an awesome life with them. I think just don't be an asshole. I would just kind of want to not look back and I want to be 60 and I don't want people to be like, oh, look at that fucking asshole. I want people to think that I'm a nice guy.
I like that. What about you, Julie?
I have always been fascinated by an Iron Man, and I hate running and I swim like a rock, but boy, I can ride a bike. So I figure I'll just suffer through some training and I would love to do one.
How would you describe your business style in one word?
Chaotic.
I like it.
I don't know. A lot of what I do is just having conversations, and it just comes and goes. And I'm on the phone all day or on Slack and just talking to people, and people come to me with all kinds of issues or topics or just need to vent, and it can be all over the place from day to day. So,
what about you, Andrew?
Well, if she's chaotic, then I guess I have to be somewhat more reserved, right? Because we have to be a yin and yang. But I guess that's kind of my job now. I always thought of myself as a little bit of a pirate when we started this, because it was super risky. It was just kind of really out there, but it's now worked, and I think now it's more measured. I think my style has definitely changed over time. Going from I'll take any risk at any point to a more measured approach now.
And how would you each describe Haymakers for Hope in one word?
It's awesome. It's just it's an awesome thing. It's special. I feel very lucky to be a part of.
I think I'd maybe go with fulfilling.
Oh, that's good.
Because obviously it fulfills me, again, as a cancer survivor and as a boxer. But having all of these people go through the program and getting to know them and learning their stories, learning what motivates them, learning their whys, learning their fears, and seeing them step through the ropes anyway and not knowing what's going to happen. Everybody goes in there with a plan and everyone hopes for that win, but someone has to lose, and still people come out of there and just think, God, I would do that all over again if I was given the chance. And it fulfills me so much. And I just hope that I can just do it forever.
I mean, it's a real amazing experience having gone through it. Definitely life-changing. It's amazing to be part of, helping to knock out cancer. It was definitely a life-changing event and something that you'll always remember. More importantly, I think you can always draw back onto that experience because it was so hellacious. The training, the training was just the training and the making weight and the ups and downs and the insecurities. And it's a lot all at once.
Well, it's as much mental as it is physical, right?
It's more mental, I would say, for sure.
It's more mental. Yeah.
Anyone listening to this podcast should definitely check out haymakersforhope.org, sign up, participate, go through it. You'll hate it and love it, and it'll be awesome and fulfilling, really worthwhile, and it'll be something you'll remember for forever. So thanks so much for what you guys are doing and for being on the podcast, and look forward to seeing what's next.
Thank you, Jason.
You.
Soul and Science is a Mechanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, Tyler Nielsen, Emma Swanson, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris.